Hi guys, it's Ben Heath, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can work out when you should and shouldn't pause your Google Ads keywords in your search campaigns. It can be really difficult to work out, should I pause this keyword? Should I keep going with it? Should I try and get this to perform well? So I'm going to talk through the considerations and things that I like to think about when I'm trying to work out, should I pause this? Should I not? Okay, so the first thing to think about is how is that keyword performing in relation to your target CPA? So I would strongly encourage everyone advertising on Google to know what it is they're aiming for. Is it a cost per lead? Is it a cost per sale? Let's assume that you're targeting a cost per lead of $50, okay? But you need to know that number in order to then be able to make the next sort of calculations and use that to make decisions around your keywords. But let's assume that you want a cost per lead of $50. That's what you can afford to pay. That's nicely profitable. And that's your target. And you're going through, you're assessing your keywords. At what point, what number do you decide to pause a keyword? I would say that the cost per lead for that keyword example needs to be at least double and often closer to 3 times what your target CPA is in order for you to go, this is too expensive, let's pause it. So if we give the example of a $50 target CPA, if you've got a current CPA on that keyword of $70, $80, I would absolutely keep it going and work out ways that you can improve the performance of that keyword. I'm going to talk about some of those options a little bit later, instead of just going and pausing it and deciding that that's not going to work for you, okay? However, if you're seeing a CPA of $125, $140, that's when we might be looking to make the decision to go, this is just too expensive, this is too far above where we want it to be, let's go ahead and pause and focus our efforts elsewhere. So that's the first thing that I would say. It's also important that you've spent enough on that keyword to actually be able to make a call on its performance. Let's say that our current CPA is $125 and our target is $50, and you think, well, this is, that's 2.5 times, that's too expensive, let's go ahead and pause it. But if you've only spent $125 and you have 1 lead associated with that keyword right now, I would not pause it yet. Because if you spend another $5, $10 and you get another lead, well, boom, immediately your cost per lead comes down to, what's that going to be, $70, $75, something like that, which is much, much closer to where you want to be. So ideally, and this isn't always easy to do, and I appreciate that you might want to be tighter with your budget than this, but I like to spend 5 times the target CPA before I make the decision to pause a keyword based on performance. Because if we're targeting a $50 cost per lead, I want to have spent roughly $250 on that keyword before I go, it's too expensive. And the reasons I just explained, right? You can be in a scenario where just with statistical variance, when you've got these really low numbers, a couple leads come in the next, few clicks, which does happen, and all of a sudden the keyword looks like it's performing really well. We have that happen all the time where it looks like keyword's not doing well, but if it's only got 1, 2, 3 conversions associated with it, and then boom, all of a sudden the next day you get a whole load more, the numbers look very, very different. So just make sure you've given each keyword enough time before you go, this is too expensive, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. When assessing keyword performance in relation to your target, cost per lead, cost per sale, etc., it's really important that you look at different timeframes. So you don't just want to make this call over the last, say, 7 days. If you've been running this keyword for significantly longer than that, I would look at multiple different timeframes. Look at the last 7 days, look at the last 30 days, look at the last 90 days, look at lifetime, how has it performed? And try and work out if has it been a keyword that's never been profitable for you? You've always been above that target CPA? Okay, that's gonna make it an easy decision to go ahead and pause this. But you can see scenarios where the keyword used to perform quite well, but has recently dropped off. And in those scenarios, maybe you don't want to pause the keyword, maybe you want to keep it going, but you just want to try and work out what has led to the drop off. Is it seasonality? There are lots of products and services that sell better at certain times of the years than others. So maybe instead of pausing it, perhaps you want to reduce any budget that's spent on it during the off season. Perhaps you do want to pause it, but just make a note to go, you know what, we're going to turn this back on when the spring comes back round, or however it happens to be. Okay. Could it be another variable? Could it be that something changed on the landing page? Something changed with the offer? Maybe those elements could be changed back if you've seen a drop off in performance. Perhaps there's more competition around that keyword now, and that's likely to stay. And yes, it was a profitable keyword, but it's not anymore because there's just far more competition. They've bidded up the price of the clicks. Therefore, we're just not going to be going after this keyword anymore. So really, if you do see changes over time, think, okay, is this something that I can change? Do I have control over this change? Can I change something back to help it perform how it used to perform? And maybe that'll get us back to where we need to be in terms of our cost per conversion. If it's not, probably one you want to go ahead and pause. Now, one important thing to mention is that if you do go ahead and pause some keywords that look like they're unprofitable, you've looked over multiple timeframes, you've assessed it in comparison to your target CPA, and you've given it enough budget, you've decided to pause. And then the overall performance of your campaign or even account goes down, that is possible. There are some keywords that effectively act as top of funnel entrance points for other keywords, or perhaps you've got a specific remarketing setup, will help in terms of getting the conversions. Having that initial entry point really is helpful. And therefore, even if that keyword in and of itself is not profitable, maybe it makes the overall campaign profitable. This often happens with broader search terms that attract quite a lot of traffic to a website. If we use the example of like a company that's trying to generate leads, broader search terms attract a lot of people to the website. Perhaps they come, they check it out, but they're not quite ready yet. They're early on in their research journey. So not a large percentage of those people actually go on to convert and become leads, but perhaps they get remarketed and they're brought back with more specific keywords when they've gone a little bit deeper into their search journey and they have a bit more of an understanding of exactly what they need. Maybe they then come back and they convert, but getting them to your website in the first place was really beneficial. So this doesn't happen with all Google Ad accounts, but it's just something to be aware of, that sometimes keywords will act as a top of funnel action. They won't get many conversions themselves, but they help the rest of your keywords perform best, almost acting like a loss leader in effect. So just keep an eye on that. Obviously, if you do that, if you go ahead and pause a keyword and you don't understand why the whole campaign, all the other keywords are now performing worse, you can always just go ahead and turn it on. And any pausing decisions with keywords you feel like it's a mistake afterwards, they can always be undone. So don't worry too much about making a mistake here and pausing a keyword that you shouldn't pause. Everything can be undone. And so far in this video, we've been focusing on when keywords are unprofitable and when you should or shouldn't pause them. But sometimes it's actually okay to pause keywords that are profitable. And this is simply a question of opportunity cost. Sometimes there are accounts where certain keywords are more profitable than others. And those keywords that are the most profitable aren't getting as much budget spent on them as they could. You know, this happens where there's lots of search volume, the budget is not high enough to take advantage of all of that. And you could have more budget being allocated towards the really profitable keywords if you go ahead and pause some of the less profitable keywords. So just keep in mind that it's not always a question of unprofitable, profitable, pause the unprofitable. Sometimes it's, could we actually spend this money better elsewhere? And in those scenarios, yes, it's okay to pause profitable keywords. Doesn't happen super regularly, but may well come up in your ad account. So in a second, I'm going to explain what you should do if you've got keywords that are borderline or mildly unprofitable, how you can turn that round. But before I do, just want to quickly mention our done for you Google Ads services. So my company creates, manages and optimizes Google Ad campaigns for our clients. If you'd like us to help you get better results and take the work off your hands, you can go ahead and click on the link in the video description below. There you can book a call directly with one of my team members who can explain all the details. Hopefully we get a chance to work together. So for keywords that are slightly unprofitable, that you've decided not to pause, you want to try and optimize and improve, what should you do? First thing is make sure you take a look at the search terms report. Really go through that in a lot of detail and add in negative keywords that are going to help you remove the unprofitable search terms from that keyword and help improve the overall performance of that keyword. Because remember, each keyword is going to attract a range of different search terms, particularly depending on match type. And there may well be some that are very nicely profitable, and you want to keep those, and some that are not. So getting more specific with your negative keywords, you can use a search terms report to find these options, can really, really help with that. The next thing is also to assess match types. So perhaps you've been using broad match or even phrase match, and you want to go more specific. If you've got a keyword that's slightly unprofitable and you want to improve performance, often just getting more specific with the searches that are allowed through your match type. So moving, say, from broad to phrase or phrase to exact can do the trick. So maybe you want to have a little play around with that, get more specific, and see an improvements in results by doing so. There are also other ways that you can break that keyword down and potentially identify scenarios where it is profitable and scenarios where it isn't. Location is one of these. If you're targeting multiple locations, perhaps you might see, if you take a look at the data, that certain locations are profitable, certain aren't for that keyword. You could either stop advertising in certain locations or even just use a manual bid adjustment so you're willing to pay more in the more profitable locations. The same that I just described with locations applies to devices. Perhaps you would want to increase your bid on mobile devices if that's producing better results with that keyword than, say, desktop, for example. So you want to go through, if you've got a keyword in this scenario, and get really specific and granular and try and work out how can we identify the parts of this keyword that are working well versus the parts of this keyword that aren't, turn off the parts that aren't, and that allows us to keep this keyword running. If you have decided to keep an unprofitable keyword and not turn it off, instead try and optimize it, improve performance, I'd give yourself a time frame during which you're going to try and do that. You don't want to be testing stuff forever and working on this keyword for 6 months, it not working the whole time, not being profitable, and you've just wasted a bunch of money. So what that time frame is for you is going to depend on, obviously your target CPA and your budget, how much is being spent on that keyword. If you've got a target CPA of $50 cost per lead and you're only spending $2 a day on that keyword, well, it's going to take quite a long time for you to work out if the changes you're making are actually helping improve performance. But if you're spending $300 a day on that keyword, you're going to find out very fast how it's performing. So just keep that in mind, but just give yourself a time frame, okay? I'm going to give this keyword 2 weeks to see if I can improve performance, or I'm going to give this keyword a month to see if I can improve performance. If I still can't get it profitable by then, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. It's also important to remember, and I touched on this a minute ago, that the performance of that keyword, whether or not it's profitable, is not just going to be down to what's included in the ad account. Could be that a landing page needs to be adjusted, the offer, the sales funnel process. These things make a massive difference to the performance of your Google ad campaigns in general. So when you're assessing what you can change and how you can get more specific, there might be some low-hanging fruit on the landing page where you go, yeah, we could improve this, we could change the offer, etc. I'd also strongly encourage you to reassess the performance of your keywords regularly. You may decide right now that a keyword is nicely profitable, you want to leave it running, but things can change. More competitors can enter the market and bid up the cost of targeting that keyword, seasonality. Sometimes things go the other way where competitors leave the market and your keywords are less expensive, they perform better. But it's important to reassess because you might make a different decision now to in 6 months' time, to in a year's time. And I actually strongly encourage you to keep an eye on what your competition are doing when it comes to their Google ad campaigns. You can do that via the Auction Insights report. I've created a whole video right over here that you can go through that shows you exactly how to look at the data points, how to see how you are performing in comparison to your competition. It can be really useful for making adjustments to your campaigns, keeping an eye on stuff. Strongly recommend you go ahead and check it out.